morning, another very warm welcome to Marshside Methodist Church. I'm Jan, I'm the minister here, but I'm also a part-time chaplain at the hospital as well. So it's lovely to see you all here this morning. We're going to pray. Let's pray. Come among us, God. You who cast the planets into space and cradle the sparrow in her nest. Come among us, God. You who bless the poor and the broken, and stand by the sad and the strong. Come among us, God, you who dance in the silence and shine in the darkness. Come and meet us here. Amen. We're going to hear a reading of Psalm 23.
I'm reading this morning from the Good News Bible. The Lord our Shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need. He lets me rest in fields of green grass and leads me to quiet pools of fresh water. He gives me new strength. He guides me in the right paths as he has promised. Even if I go through the deepest darkness, I will not be afraid, Lord, for you are with me. Your shepherd's rod and staff protect me. You prepare a banquet for me, where all my enemies can see me. You welcome me as an honoured guest, and fill my cup to the brim. I know that your goodness and love will be with me all my life, and your house will be my home as long as I live. God bless this reading.
A poem by Emily Matthews. Our memories build a special bridge. Our memories build a special bridge when loved ones have to part, to help us feel we're with them still and soothe a grieving heart. They span the years and warm our lives, preserving ties that bind. Our memories build a special bridge and bring us peace of mind. We're going to sing a hymn that reflects the psalm that we heard, The Lord's My Shepherd.
Lord's my shepherd, He makes me lie in pastures green. He leads me by the still waters. His goodness restores my soul, and I will trust in you alone. And I will trust in you alone. For your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home. He guides my ways, He hides my steps, and He anoints my head with oil, and my cup it overflows with joy. I feast on His pure delights, and I will trust in you alone. And I will trust in you alone. For your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home. Though I walk the darkest path, I will not fear the evil one. For you are with me, and your rod and staff are the comfort I need to know. And I will trust in you alone. And I will trust in you alone. For your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home.
We'll be reading the reading Do Not Hurry a little bit later in what I want to say. I want to begin by asking a question. Are we nearly there yet? Those with children or grandchildren, or indeed any of us who have ever been children, which I guess is all of us, have either heard or asked this question. In fact, I was talking to somebody at the hospital only a few weeks ago who was taking her 90-year-old mum to Australia to see family. And she said the first time she asked the question, are we nearly there yet, was before they took off. Apparently, it was a very long journey. Most journeys we go on, we have lots of time to prepare for. Indeed, my father was one of the greatest at preparing for any journey. Sadly, he died suddenly 16 years ago, and I will be remembering him today in the act of remembrance, as I'll be remembering my wife's father, who died this March. In my young life, we rarely went on holiday, but suddenly, after all the children had left home, we discovered he'd got the holiday bug and went all over the place. But for their annual trip to the Lake District, usually July-August time, the cases and the boxes would come out usually just after Easter, April-May time. The spare room would be taken over, and over those months the things would be added to the point where he couldn't remember what he had packed, so he'd pack it again. But it came in handy. One of my favourite stories about my dad was when we were out walking the Lake District one day and somebody's bootlace broke. Somebody said, has anybody got any string? To which my dad replied, what colour would you like? Such was the preparation. But the journey of grief isn't like that. Listen to a meditation about journeys. When we know we are going on a journey, we pack our bag. We get prepared. A guidebook tells us where to visit, a map to show us the way, a torch to light the path, food to sustain us, water to refresh us, clothes to keep us warm. But for the journey of grief, there is little or no time to prepare. Just get up and go. No time to think. No guidebook to tell us where we should visit. No map to show the way through grief. The light seems to fade very fast. Food seems unpalatable. Water brings no refreshment. Wrapped in sadness, sometimes we feel we walk alone. One of the things that sustained me over the years has been a love of walking and a love of the countryside, and sometimes the journey of grief is likened to that. Mike, I don't know if you got the slide that I've sent to you for this. And just to frame some of the things that I like to focus just for a few moments on, as we gather to remember, as we gather with a sense of loss and grief, are perhaps some of these things. Looking back with gratitude, looking up with trust, looking forward to hope. And these work in so many different ways. Looking back can be emotive. It can bring sadness, it can bring joy, depending perhaps where we are on the grief journey. And indeed, sometimes when you're on the mountains, particularly some of the most precarious place, the worst thing you can do is actually look back, because it can be crippling to the point where you become overwhelmed by fear and can't put one foot in front of another. And sometimes grief can be like that. But sometimes we come, and looking back brings laughter, it brings smiles, it brings hope. I say just about every funeral I conduct, never be afraid of talking of loved ones. If it makes us cry, that doesn't matter. Far better we shed tears and remember than pretend that we can forget. Because we can't forget. And if we try, we simply store up trouble. In a sense, Memories Building a Special Bridge was the invitation to look back, to recognise they are the link between the past, the present, and the future. They are what keep us smiling and positive, and at times tearful. Look up with trust is a phrase that you can take at any level you want. For For those who rely on a deeply spiritual and religious life, well, look at the psalm. The psalmist, writing thousands and thousands of years ago, was simply saying, look up to God. Written probably by the same author of the famous psalm, I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord our God, who created the heaven and earth and the hills. The psalmist was saying, if you can, look around you. Look and see that outside what you can see, touch and feel now, there is something greater than that. And the model that he gave of God was the very famous one of the Lord is my shepherd. It's lost in our farming industry today. You know, I've got a friend in North Yorkshire who is a sheep farmer, and I once asked them how many sheep they'd got. They replied if I gave them 3 or 4 days, they might be able to get within 100 or so. Back then, well, we know from the parables of the New Testament, it was 99, 100, 120. It was a small holding. And every one mattered. One made a difference. And the model of looking up that was given there was a spiritual model of look up and find help from that and the who cares for you. But we can also say look up is a different model as well. It simply says, in our journey of grief. Although we may want to simply look at our shoes all the time, we may want to be inevitably inward looking, and there are lots of times when we need to be that. But also the encouragement is look up with trust, that this is a journey that we have the strength to travel. We may not know when it's going to end, and the ending may not be what we want it to be. But it is a journey we can travel with the support and the hope and the care of others. And it is a journey that we can find strength to. There are times when you are walking that you do ever wonder if you're going to get there. I often walk in groups, and often that has its strengths, but sometimes it doesn't always have its strengths, especially when you think you're the one who knows where you're going and you've got people hopelessly lost. I'm thinking of one occasion back to the Three Peaks in Yorkshire, where the boggiest bit is between Pennygent and Marshside. It's about 7 or 8 miles walking through the Yorkshire bogs. This particular day, it's quite possible and vaguely feasible I may have taken the group the wrong way. Which is the most I'll ever get to admitting I got that bit wrong. The Yorkshire bogs were up to here, and the language wasn't one that I'd have been using in the pulpit the day after. Are we nearly there yet? Didn't cover it, because it felt like we were never going to get there. And that's sometimes how grief can feel. And sometimes that's when the companionship and the walking with others is so very, very important. And support from others is key. Trusted friends. And one angry writing about grief says this to friends and to those who try to be friends. Don't tell me that you understand. Don't tell me that you know. Don't tell me that I will survive, how I will surely grow. Don't come to me with answers that can only come from me. Don't tell me that my grief will pass, that I will soon be free. Accept me in my ups and downs. I need someone to share. Just hold my hand and let me cry and say, my friend, I'm there. That's companionship, and that's friendship. The great walker, Wainwright, who anyone who's ever walked in the Lake District knows well, was the grumpiest walker on earth, apparently. He wrote in one of his books, when I see a group of Boy Scouts, I'll say a hello to the first one, but I'm not going to waste my breath saying hello to them all. He may have written some great books. He may have written some great guides. He may have even given us lots of pleasure, but you wouldn't want to walk with him. Choose your friends and companions carefully and look to them with trust. Do not hurry is a piece of writing I often use. Sometimes people will say, how long does grief last? And no one can answer that. And what this encourages us to do is not to hurry, to be kind and gentle with ourselves. Do not hurry as you walk with grief, for it does not help the journey. Walk slowly, pausing often. Do not hurry as you walk with grief. Be not disturbed by thoughts that come unbidden. Let time heal unspoken words and resolve unfinished conversations. Be not disturbed. Be gentle with the one who walks with grief. If it is you, be gentle with yourself. Walk slowly, pausing often. Take time. Be gentle as you walk with grief. And looking up with hope, looking forward with hope, perhaps encourages us to do some things ourselves. It's so important to mark occasions. It's good to recognise people who have been to remembrance and memorial services before. Some I know come every year. And these can be marking moments. They can be moments when you say, gosh, I've not got there yet. I don't know when the end of the journey is going to be, but I remember this time last year, it was even worse than it feels now. Mark how you feel. Some people find it really helpful to keep diaries and keep journals and to record their feelings so they can look back and mark how they have made little steps. Sometimes there's no giant leaps, but there are little steps. And as I said at the beginning of our service, remembrance is so therapeutic. It's so important to mark and to remember. We never forget. And as we come later to our active remembrance, if you want to share something you're remembering with someone, talk to the person next to you. They won't bite your head off, they've come to remember as well. Share a memory, especially if you've come on your own and it's not something you do very often. And if you can't find anyone, Karen, Jan, come and find me, come and find the three of us. We'd love to hear what you're remembering as you tie your ribbon around the tree. One of the things we're also giving you to take away today is a bulb. Bulbs, well, it's that time of year, isn't it, where we plant them. And I always find these really helpful, and these words I've written about them actually focus very much on what it is to plant bulbs as part of the grief journey. For a bulb is a sign of potential, of hope, of what might be. Hold it now, it feels rough. It is little that is lovely. It could easily be disregarded as insignificant with nothing to offer. But plant it, give it the right conditions, and amazingly, from what is ugly comes beauty. And next year the same. But perhaps a little stronger, because of knowing the cycle has happened before. And the invitation, as well as doing some remembrance in our service today, is to take the bulb you've been given with you, plant it in your garden, plant it in a pot, plant it anywhere. Watch it grow, and watch that as a sign of how there may be hope in your journey of grief. And then do the same again next year. Because when it's flowered, that's not the end. It's a new beginning and a new step on the journey. But all of it looking forward with hope. It's wonderful to have Karen, and we share so much in terms of support and care, and she's going to share some thoughts with us as well. I know many of you will know Karen from the hospice and the hospital and personal experience. Karen,
Go on, there we go. Keep going.
It occurred to me while I was thinking about this that actually for some people, grief lasts a lifetime. Not only that grief never goes away, but that actually for some people it starts very, very early in life. Children who lose parents, who lose siblings, who lose friends, teenagers who lose their friends, our medical students who come to us, and I'm amazed by the number of deaths they've already experienced. And we know that grief never goes away. It varies through our lives, but it never goes away. And for every single person, it is an individual experience. So what I'm going to say about ways of remembering today, I hope will capture a little bit of some people's experience.
It won't capture everything of everybody's. So how do I remember you? Initially, how could I forget? So raw was the sense that you were no longer here with me. It was only hours, and then became days from that moment happening. The moment that you changed from living by my side to being lifeless by my side. That standstill moment of no going back. Everywhere I turned, I expected you to be there, forgetting. Every comment I made to share, forgetting. And yet, although you were not where I turned and did not respond, in a sense your presence was there, had always been, and always will be. You are part of all we shared, all we enjoyed, all the sadnesses we endured, all we created together. So how do I remember you? I see a smile, and I remember yours, in front of me, bursting with expectation. I see children playing, and I remember playfulness and fun and laughter and tears. I hear music, reminders of moments shared, dances danced, songs we sang. I close my eyes and I dance again and sing along. I cook a meal and I remember your likes and dislikes, the way you savoured every mouthful of your favourite food. I smell your scent. Such powerful memories flood back. I walk down the street and imagine I see you just ahead. Never closer, always just ahead. I talk to your picture, angry with you for leaving me, leaving us. Sad that you are not still here to share the day's today ups and downs. I harbour regrets at those things we didn't share, or unkind words we spoke sometimes. They seem so petty now. My hand lights upon a beautifully carved piece of furniture, and the uninvited tears begin to fall as I remember the workmanship you crafted gently, quietly, and masterfully. My eyes light on the space that you would be in if you were here, and I see it empty. And then, how do I remember you? I talk of you with family and friends, keeping your memory alive for me and for them. I pray for you as I know you pray for me. And I pray with you as we always pray together. I open up the photo album and I remember all the good times we had. I reminisce. I relive. I return to happy and some difficult days. I write you a letter and I tell you all those things I miss telling you face to face. I get cross with you for leaving me to cope alone, to grow up or grow old without you. I tell you how much I love you and how much I miss you. I take out the clothing I kept. I feel it, I smell it, I hold it close, as if by doing so I can bring you back for a little while. And then I worry about forgetting you if I'm not thinking of you all the while. So I hang your picture in the hall so that I see you every time I use the stairs. And I pass the time of day as my eyes are light on you. I make a scrapbook of your bits and bobs, a collage of your life. I plant forget-me-nots to help me not forget, as if I ever could. or your favourite rose to bloom anew each year for me. I light a candle on your anniversary to mark that most important day. I watch the flickering flame remind me of your ever-present vitality. And then I realise I will never forget. No matter how long it may be, no matter how many new discoveries, friendships, or even family there might yet be, no matter where I travel or where I may live, you will always have that very special place in my heart, in my life, in my love, in my memory. Because you are you, just as much now as you ever were and will be ever.
Karen, for those beautiful words. We come now. We're not working. I'll turn it on. Thank you, Karen, for those beautiful words. And we come now to our act of remembrance. It's a time where we invite you, as I said at the beginning of the service, to place a flower on the book of remembrance which is in the cabinet there. It doesn't matter if your loved one's not named in that. There's something symbolic about taking a flower and placing it where loved ones are remembered. You can light a tea light, a candle on the table there, and each one will become a symbol of hope and a symbol of remembrance. And you can come into this area of the church and simply take a ribbon and place it or tie it in whatever way you want onto our tree of remembrance. Some people may like to kiss them as they do so. It's a sign of our ongoing remembering. You may simply like to sit where you are and stay there and remembering. We're very aware that there's a lot of people to move. Those of us who are downstairs can't necessarily see everybody who's up in the gallery, and it's lovely to see, well, frankly, from somebody who's been at this church a long, long time on and off, it's lovely to see people sat in the gallery when there's little room to sit downstairs. That's marvellous. But we are going to have to be sensitive to people moving around, so we'll, as the meditation I offered earlier, walk slowly, pausing often, talk and remember. And while we do that, music will play. So we come to our act of remembrance.
There you go.
Fill me with your love, fill me with your peace, fill me, Lord, with you. I need you more than words can say. It's true that I need you. stop you like this. Loved by you forever. Thank you.
Thank you for leading us in that song. So today we've been remembering people that we loved and who died. And we've been thinking about how special they are to us. We're going to hear a story now about Badger, who knows he's old and he's about to die. And Badger is worried about how sad his friends are going to be when he dies. So let's hear the story of Badger's parting gifts. Badger was dependable, reliable, and always ready to lend a helping paw. He was very old, and he knew almost everything. Badger was so old, he knew that soon he must die. Badger wasn't afraid of death. Dying meant only he would leave his body behind, and his body didn't work as well as it used to do. Badger wasn't too concerned. His only worry was how his friends were going to feel when he'd gone. So hoping to prepare them, Badger told them that one day he would be going on a journey and leaving them. And he hoped they wouldn't be too sad when this happened. One day, as Badger was watching Mole and Frog race down the hillside, he felt especially old and tired. He wished more than anything he could run with them, but he knew his legs wouldn't carry him. He watched Mole and Frog for a long time, enjoying the sight of his friends having a good time. It was late when he arrived home. He wished the moon good night and closed the curtains to the cold world outside. He made his way slowly down to the warm fire that was waiting for him deep underground. He had his supper and sat down at his desk to write a letter. And when he'd finished, he settled down in his rocking chair near the fire. He gently rocked himself to and fro, and soon was fast asleep, having a strange yet wonderful dream like none he'd ever had before. Much to Badger's surprise, he was running. Ahead of him, his legs felt strong and sure as he ran. He no longer needed his walking stick, so he left it lying on the floor. Badger moved swiftly, running faster and faster until his paws no longer touched the earth. He felt himself turning his head over paws, falling and tumbling, but nothing hurt. He felt free. He felt as if he'd fallen out of his body. Exactly what happened. The following day, Badger's friends gathered anxiously outside Badger's door. They were worried because he hadn't come to say good morning, as he always did. Fox broke the sad news that Badger was dead. And he read Badger's note to them. It simply said, "Bye-bye, Badger." All the animals loved Badger, and everyone was very sad, especially Mole, who felt lost and alone and desperately unhappy. In bed that night, Mole could only think of Badger. Tears rolled down his velvety nose, soaking the blankets he clung to for comfort. Outside, it began to snow again. Winter had begun, and soon a thick layer of snow hid the animals' homes, where they would stay snug and warm during the cold months. Snow covered the countryside, but it didn't conceal the sadness that Badger's friends felt. Badger had always been there when anyone needed him. The animals wondered what they would do now that he was gone. But Badger had told them not to be unhappy, but it was hard. As spring drew near, the animals often visited each other and talked about the days when Badger was alive. Mole was really good using scissors, and he told about the time that Badger taught him how to cut a chain of paper moles from a piece of folded paper. Paper moles had littered the ground that day, and Mole remembered the joy he'd felt when he finally succeeded in making a complete chain of moles with all the paws joined. Frog was an excellent skater. He recalled how Badger had helped him take his first slippery steps on the ice. Badger gently guided him across the ice until he gained enough confidence to glide out on his own. Fox remembered how when he was a young cub, he could never tie a knot properly until Badger showed him how. Starting with the wide end of the tie, it's right over left, one strand to the back, up, then down, through the crossover, and holding the back of the tie, push the knot up the tie. Fox could now tie every knot ever invented, and some he'd made up himself, and of course, his own necktie was perfectly knotted. Badger had given Mrs. Rabbit a special recipe for gingerbread and had shown her how to make gingerbread rabbits. Mrs. Rabbit was well known throughout the countryside for her excellent cooking. And she talked about her first cooking lesson with Badger so long ago, she could almost smell the wonderful fragrance of gingerbread fresh from the oven. Each of the animals had a special memory of Badger, something he taught them that they could do extremely well now. He'd given each of them a parting gift to treasure always. Using these gifts, they would be able to help each other. As the last of the snow melted, so did the animals' sadness. Whenever Badger's name was mentioned, someone remembered another story that made them smile. One warm spring day, as Mole was not walking on the hillside when he'd last seen Badger, he wanted to thank his friend for his parting gift. "Thank you, Badger," he said softly, believing Badger would hear him. And somehow, Badger did. Well, to begin with, Badger was right to worry about his friends being sad, wasn't he? They were sad when he died. But then they got to remembering all the fun things that they had done with Badger, all the things that Badger had taught them to do, and all the time that they'd spent with Badger having so much fun, and it brought back lots of happy memories for them. And then they realised that because of all those happy memories of Badger, that maybe, in some way, Badger was still with them. Every time they did the things that Badger had taught them, every time they shared a memory or a story about Badger, it was as if he was still there, and it made them feel a little bit better. So maybe when someone we love dies, and we're feeling really sad about it, it would be good for us to remember all of the happy times we spent with them, all of the things that they've taught us to do, and to share stories about them with other people who love them. And maybe in doing that, it will make us feel a little bit better too.
I'm going to say some short prayers, so let us pray. And in the season of the church, we remember this time of year is All Saints' time. We remember that there is one community of people on earth and in heaven. And we give thanks to God for that. And pray that we may follow the example of those who have gone before. We pray for all who journey with grief. times of sadness and times of glimpsing how life might be. We pray for strength to celebrate the past and to look forward with hope. We offer thanks for the gift of memory, for the gift of those we hold in our memory, for loved ones, and for those who are held in the community memory and in the memory of God. We pray for those whose memory is challenged, and through it their very identity. We offer thanks for those who care for us, the gift of community and the care of those around. We thank God for the gift of forgiveness, and we ask that we might be able to forgive ourselves as we give thanks for the forgiving love of God. We pray for those who have asked prayers today, for Margaret Davis, for Jean and Colin Hickson, for Angela Woodward and her family. We pray for the world community and those who live in the shadow of fear, of starvation and of war. Unite us all, we pray, in our common humanity. And we bring our prayers together in the prayer that Jesus taught his followers, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. After our next hymn, I'll say a prayer of blessing, and then the invitation, as I said earlier, is to go into the lounge, into the hall for refreshments and conversation. It's the tradition of the church that during one of the hymns, an offertory is taken for the work of the church, and stewards will wander around with collection baskets. Don't worry if you've brought nothing, don't worry if you don't want to place anything in it, just let it go past you without any sense of embarrassment whatsoever. The collection is used for the work of the little church here at Marshside Road.
Quitting today.
Will you please stand as we sing the hymn Love Divine, or Love's Excelling.
Thank you.
words. I'm going to use are some of the words I meant to begin with from 1 Corinthians 13. Faith, hope, love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love, for love never ends. We go surrounded by the cloud of witness of those who have gone before. We go in hope, perhaps too with some fear and sadness. We go to support one another and to be supported. And the same loving God who cares for us today will journey with us as we journey in the human family. May God be our strength, comfort and hope. And may the blessing of God, the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit, to whom we dedicate these gifts, be with us now and journey with us always. Amen.